Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're very excited to be talking about the next major release from HawkSearch, our Bourne release here. Very exciting stuff. We've got a whole little presentation put together for you guys today that we're going to be diving into. Some quick slides to kind of lay out the groundwork for you guys here and make sure that everyone is brought up to speed. Of course, we're going to lead off with some introductions here and make sure that everyone knows who you're talking to today. So let me go ahead and move on here to the next slide here. And we can go ahead and look at our pretty faces just like you're looking at our pretty faces here.
They look a little better on those screenshots,
Jonathan. Right. Isn't that the case there? So I'm joined today by John Murcott. John, why don't you go ahead and do a quick little introduction there?
Yep. Hi, everyone. John Murcott. I run products and strategy. And we've been doing this for a while now, Jonathan. Exciting stuff.
Yes, yeah, very exciting. And most of you guys who've joined any of these webinars in the past should know me. My name is Jonathan Meyer. I'm one of the senior solutions engineers working for the Bridgeline team with HawkSearch here, obviously working very close with John, and very excited to be here today to talk about the Bourne release. So what are we going to be talking about that? Well, we want to do a little bit of housekeeping up front here. John, I'll pass it to you to talk a little bit about this particular slide because I think this is a good overview of where we've been, where we're going, and kind of helps set the tone there, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, for sure. And it brings back some memories because this is when we started doing these together, Jonathan, in 2023. So we started really with a lot of this kind of the cleanup of HawkSearch usability, kind of getting to the fundamentals. We used the car model. We loved the Bronco and, taking a great old model and redesigning it, et cetera. So that was super exciting. That was a great year. And then AI came. And we really, thought big. Let's go back to the classics. Let's go to the Greek gods, Zeus, Athena, and Hermes. And that was a heavy focus on what we call smart search and smart response, which we'll go through. And now AI is changing as well, and HawkSearch right along with it, which is more around this agentic approach. How can AI help with automation? How can it help with productivity, et cetera? So hopefully we're not going to get in trouble, Jonathan, for using the rights of Jason Bourne. But the idea is these are agents. So the Bourne, Black Widow, James Bond, that kind of idea, because we're adding and enhancing, of course, the original AI work that we did last year, but now adding more of that agentic functionality.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's a really good kind of theming, and you'll see as we move along here that we've got some really great ideas in terms of where we're going for that. And starting off with the Bourne release, I think is very exciting. So let's get into some of what that's going to cover here. This is it's a lot of information to take in here, but I think this is really good to kind of help set the groundwork in terms of what are we doing when we're talking about AI, before we start diving into these things that that are a part of this new release and kind of where we're driving, looking at the roadmap for future releases. We want to kind of set the table on where we're at. And as a quick aside here, because I want to make sure that we're capturing this as a part of the conversation, if you just want to get, right into the weeds here, notice in the bottom corner of your screen there is that little QR code where you can scan that to book a demo. If you're like, hey, I just want to get to the meat and potatoes here, go ahead and scan that QR code. That'll get you right to the prompt where we can go ahead and get a demo booked for you. More than happy to hop on a one-on-one call where you can really dive into the weeds on specific use cases and really show you kind of what we're doing here. So feel free to make sure that you're scanning that code if you're looking to get kind of directly involved here. But John, while we've got this screen up here, why don't you go ahead and give us a quick run through of what we're looking at and break down kind of all the features that we're talking about here.
For sure. And I know, Jonathan, both of us struggle with, or I shouldn't say struggle, but we just jump right in and start using terms like smart search and smart response. And we just assume, because we live in this world, that everyone's on the same page. And even Hawk AI overall, we kind of introduced last year, and Hawkeye, the fun kind of naming there, the superhero, et cetera. So just to kind of set the table and make sure we're all on the same page, smart search, for people who are kind of familiar with this concept of RAG, this retrieval augmented generation, are just new ways to search. We grew up in keyword, obviously, but then when we added the embedding functionality for concept search, so I can ask a question, or image search, so I can describe a picture or leverage the description of a picture in a search, those are merged together into what we call unified search. So it's one search bar, but when you submit the request, we're getting results back from the keyword, the concept, and the image search. So I apologize when we just throw out these terms and people are like, wait, what's the difference then? What is unified search versus concept search? Hopefully that just explains it a little bit more. But then, of course, there is also the visual search. So I want to actually search by taking a picture of the product and find that match. So it's another type of search activity, but it's not per se within the unified search, because of course you have to upload the picture in order to do that. It's not going to be in the same search bar, so to speak. So that's everything around search. We're just trying to make the search results more and more relevant by bringing in more and more technology with AI. But it doesn't have to stop there. Do you have a
Actually,
thought
I
there,
was going
John?
to say, I want to
Yeah.
kind of call attention to the fact that for anyone, any client of HawkSearch right now, any of our customers that are watching this, all of that functionality is currently available. So we're kind of setting the table on what we can do going forward. We want to make sure everyone's up to speed here. But as you're looking at this, you're like, oh, hey, visual search would be great for our customers who are out in the field and want to take a photo of a part that they don't know and they're looking to get,
Yeah.
kind of a response on that. That's already available. That isn't just tied to this Bourne release. That is functionality that has been rolled out as a part of those earlier releases. We just want to make sure everyone is up to speed on this
Oh, good
functionality.
point.
So, don't look at this as like, oh, this is something that are
Good
just
point.
rolling out now. We've been working with that smart search functionality for over a year now at this point.
Oh, yeah, it's a good point. And the next two are the ones that are more aligned
Yeah.
with the Bourne release, although we do have smart response already, but we've made enhancements to it. And now we're getting in kind of that next part of the evolution, which is you don't have to stop at smart search. Of course, it's wonderful if you provide good search results. Obviously, that's the main goal, but you can take another step. Right. And we see this all the time in Google. You put in a search request, you get the results back, and then you start seeing the AI write out an answer. Right. So
Yeah.
first you have to get the results, that smart search. Then I can ask the LLM, the Gen AI aspect, to can you summarize, that first result, or can
Hmm.
you actually answer the question? Because it's wonderful if you just telling me, hey, the answer is in this PDF file, but it's a 10-page file. Like, what do you want me to do? I might just scroll through the whole file, to get the dimension or whatever it is for that part. It's like, no, it'll answer it. Or leverage the facets in a more creative way. The point is, it's after the results come back, now we can give it back. You do wait a moment where it's kind of thinking, and you get that smart response. So it's a new experience. And in the Bourne release, we're making it easier for developers. A lot of these features are often built into our rapid UI framework, but then sometimes people say, but can I just call the API directly? And can I allow my merchandisers to change things like the prompt? And Jonathan, I
Hmm.
know you'll get into this stuff, but that's
Yeah.
where we're going with the Bourne release. And then, of course, moving forward too is agents. So
Yep.
it's not so much the search side, it's not so much on the smart response, but these are additional AI agents that are automating processes or making you more productive. And that's a lot of where the rest of these releases this year are going. So it's a
Yeah.
lot to absorb, but hopefully it defines a couple of these terms you and I use all the time, Jonathan.
Exactly. Yeah. We want to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about when we say smart search versus smart agents versus smart response, and what does that mean? Although the thing I like about this slide as well is that it lets you know with those kind of arrows below the tables there that all of these can talk to each other. Like the reason smart response works so well is because it's using the information from smart search.
Yeah.
The smart agents are going to be able to layer into the smart responses, and so it really is kind of this holistic approach to how can we take advantage of all of these different tools and make sure that they're kind of delivering on that functionality. So you've
Yeah.
heard us say smart response several different times now, and that is really one of the big things that we want to zero in on this conversation today as part of the Bourne release, because there's, as you mentioned, we're really kind of expanding into that here. This is a bunch of information to break down here, but kind of builds off of that last slide, I think, in a very important way, versus just saying, hey, here's this feature, and here's what it's called, and kind of here's the thing behind the scenes. This is more of a visual representation of, well, what do those things actually mean from a front end perspective? If someone's going to be interacting with our search, what does that look like? And so, of course, we have the search bar at the top there, where you can drop in those kinds of smart search requests, where we can be using, again, that RAG process to pull back in that information, look at the visual searching as well, both from an image and upload perspective there, and then that smart response. And John, I want to maybe lean on you a little bit to talk a bit about this particular function, because I think the search bar people kind of get. We were talking earlier about the different pieces of it, but really the smart response and getting into some of the how we leverage the smart search response to drive that search smart response, I think might be important to break down for our team here.
Yeah, and I would just add one more aspect to that question, Jonathan, which is in the end, these are components. There could be a scenario, and we've done this for customers, where they say, do I even need the results to show on the bottom? Like,
Yeah.
what if someone asks me a question and I just answer it? That kind of thing. And you can imagine that gets into conversational
Yeah.
search, etc. So in the end, it is just a component, and it takes in as the input the results, as you were just saying, Jonathan. And then we typically display it this way underneath the search bar within this little area that says smart response, because that's a common way to do it. Doesn't have to be that way. It could be somewhere else. Or as I said, there's a lot of flexibility here. But one of the other aspects that's important for the Bourne release is, as I was mentioning, number one, what if I want to change the prompt? I have 3 different types of visitors, let's say. Do I always have to respond the same way? No. You could just say, like, oh, if this kind of person's logged in, I want you to respond this way. I'm sure we're all kind of getting familiar with this idea of a prompt. And I don't have to keep going back to the developer, say, hey, could you change the prompt, in the code, because I want to, change that, or, that type of thing. So that's a lot of where we're going with this release, is exposing that prompt to the non-technical people, and the developers just referencing, the idea of that prompt. And that's how you can kind of keep testing. And that's the kind of testing a lot of our customers do now. Like, let me tweak this prompt a little bit, the term of prompt engineer, so to speak. That's where you get a lot of this flexibility here.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part. The smart response that we're talking about here has historically, as we've been kind of rolling this out, has been something that we've had a lot more control over on our end, to say, okay, well, we can do a little bit of the prompt engineering, and we can kind of, it was a little bit more hard coded. The evolution that we're doing a part of this Bourne release that we can that we'll start to show here momentarily is really getting into how can we make that a little bit more fluid, and how can we put that more of that control of that prompt engineering back into the merchandisers who do want to say, well, what if we added a little bit of a modifier here? What if we, put a little bit more clarification there? What if we were a little bit more, engineered that prompt to meet more of our specific needs? So we want to make sure that that process is much more streamlined.
Totally. And Jonathan, I know you're going to get into this, but also, to be clear, what if I want to use a different model? Like, can I change the model? We're all kind of familiar. There's these various models. Can I switch the model? And you were mentioning this briefly, Jonathan, you'll get into more detail. Can I also determine how in that smart search framework that I want to lean more heavily, let's say, on the image search, or I want to lean more heavily on the keyword search, or concept, or equal across all? So we're just adding a little more flexibility. You've used this term, Jonathan, tailored AI. So it's not kind of an all or nothing. You can still tweak, you can still adjust, you could still apply your merchandising rules, even though you're leveraging the benefits and power of AI.
And that gets into, I think, a really important distinction in the Hawk search space here, especially when we're looking at things like our smart response here, specifically around this kind of smart summary. And so you can see as we're moving through here that we've got, some animation playing out here in terms of what is this doing here. And we're going to provide a live demonstration of this functionality as well here. But that idea of a tailored approach. We want to make sure that every business that we work with, we're working obviously with clients in all kinds of different industries that have different needs. And a fun one that I always like to bring out is the idea that we work with a lot of fastener companies in the B2B space. Obviously, if you haven't heard, Gartner placed us as #1 for B2B search there, so very excited about that. But one of the reasons that we understand that is because of the differences of different clients. And so knowing that in the fastener space, what someone is referring to as a washer means something very different than someone who works in the home appliances space, where a washer means obviously like a clothes washer, or that means something very different to someone who works in kind of the home goods space, where I might be talking about cleaning supplies. That one word, washer, has 3 very different meanings when we're talking about this, from what kind of an industry, what kind of a business are you in, what is your product catalog. And so from our approach, that kind of tailored AI is really about making sure that when we're leveraging these generative AI things, when we're looking at understanding the embedding models, that we can actually make sure that we're delivering a response, a AI response that understands, no, a washer means this thing for the fastener space, a washer means this thing for the home appliance space, a washer means something different for another client. And so that really gets into kind of what we're talking about here when we're thinking about the smart response and the smart summary that we're talking about in this example here. So what we're going to talk about when we get into the demonstration piece of this is really what's happening here. And you can hopefully the animation is coming through here. It looks like it's playing on my end. But we can go ahead and then see the example here where we're putting in a search, and then the results are being returned, and the smart response in this case is working as a summary. It's looking at the results that are being returned And using the prompt in the back end, it is then picking a result from those and then delivering a response and says, hey, here's kind of what's returned. We can make a recommendation for a product and kind of give you some reasons why this might be important. This is a really powerful kind of introduction to this functionality of, well, this is really just kind of like the ground floor. Let's look at those results and start to drive it. What we realized very quickly after that, again, understanding kind of another use case for this is not just necessarily maybe guided navigation or guided selling is another very common way to refer to this, but to then leverage this to help answer questions from documentation, questions from product catalogs, same kind of framework of that smart response. Really, again, technically changing that prompt in the back end of the tool to tell it to look, okay, hey, we're going to be looking at PDFs. We're going to be crawling through that information. We're going to be trying to pull information out of the documentation that we have to derive a direct response to that. That is answering the question that the visitor is posing to us. It's a different approach, but the nice thing here is that it is leveraging all of that same kind of functionality within that framework of smart response. Are we looking to do more guided selling, more of a summary of what the results are being returned? Are we looking to answer questions that are based around this? There's a little bit of a plumbing difference in the back end, but from customers of HawkSearch's end, it's a very straightforward kind of example to say, hey, we want to drive something a little bit different based off of what our use cases are. So that smart summary versus a smart answer. Changing the prompts in the back end, changing the data that we're looking for. These are all functionalities that HawkSearch is able to drive now with this smart response functionality as a part of that Bourne release that we're rolling out now. John, anything you'd add to these two examples here of our smart summary or our smart answer functionality within the smart response feature?
Only, of course, I have to laugh, Jonathan, because I know a more technical kind of developer would be like, isn't it the same thing? And it is. It's all smart response, but of course, just the use cases, etc. So yes, smart response is the underlying technology leveraging the prompt, but we pre-built and kind of pre-set up some of these things. That's why we position them slightly different, but it's all smart response.
It is all smart response. That is the main takeaway. These are more kind of flavors, different examples of how this functionality can be used. I will say it gets a little bit more tricky when we start looking at PDFs. There's some other data keywords that we want to look into there. But it's more talking about how we can support those use cases now going forward.
Well, and that is one of the things we scrape the PDF file where we didn't used to do that before, of course, those types of things. So fair point. There's a little bit more to it than that, but in the end, it's still the data.
A little bit more plumbing is the way I would refer to that. But yeah, at the end of the day, really what we want to highlight here is that these are just flavors of that smart response. We go back to the summary slide here. This is, again, driving more of that guided selling kind of experience of, hey, we're going to return some results leveraging that great smart search functionality where we're able to understand the intent of, I need some good hiking shoes. And not only are we then returning the relevant results, but the summary is looking at those results and understanding, okay, the question is, we're looking for good hiking shoes. Well, what makes up a good hiking shoe? So not only are we going to then find a result to make a selection from there, but we're going to provide context in terms of why that is a good shoe. So you see here in part of the animation, it's giving us the reasons why this is a good shoe for hiking. Whereas when we're looking at the other example here of the weight of the Moab 3, this is a very specific detail that we're requesting. So instead of it just being like, yeah, here's the Moab 3 product, we're not just looking for a link to the documentation. We're looking to pull out the answer from that documentation. So really exciting functionality. We're going to show this as part of the demonstration momentarily here. A few other things to get through before we get into the demonstration, because again, we want to make sure everyone is all up to speed on the totality of the Bourne release, which is pretty massive on our end here. We are also, of course, as a part of this further development of our smart response functionality, all of the documentation has now been updated as well. It is available in our developer document portal, which is very easily accessible from within the HawkSearch Workbench. Of course, you can also reach out to us for any kind of links that you're looking for there. I think links are on even the website, the hawksearch.com website, to get direct access to that information. So just be aware that if we do have developers who, like you were just talking, John, like, oh, wasn't that the same kind of thing? A little bit more plumbing in the back end, but if they're looking to get more information around kind of how does this actually work, what is the kind of nuts and bolts, what are the API calls that I can make into this, what does the formatting of that look like, all of that is available in our developer document portal with a dedicated section now for our smart response functionality.
I'll just highlight there too, Jonathan, that I'm really excited about a aspect of this in the API, that not only does it return the actual smart response, which you would put in as a developer into that component wherever you want to put it, but it also gives you the reasoning. So what was the reasoning from the LLM? Why did I write it out this way? Which is nice for testing or just, kind of checking on the results. So that was a nice addition, I would say.
I think that's secretly kind of a very big part of the conversation here, because I think everyone understands the power of AI and kind of what it can do for us, but I think everyone's also a little gun shy. That we've all
Yeah.
seen those stories about how Google suddenly hallucinated how many R's are in the word strawberry.
Mhm.
Those are jokes that memes that people pass around, and so we want to make sure that when we're delivering this functionality, we're obviously putting in guardrails on our end, and obviously we have a better use case of we're not Google trying to boil the internet here. We're looking at a particular set of data to work against. But this ability for us to deliver not only, hey, here is the response that we're going to return, but here's a little bit of the reason why, can help with the prompt engineering, can help with understanding a little bit more about what's going on with the response that we're returning. So very exciting stuff there. Let's go ahead and move on, because I do want to make sure we get into some of the more things that we can demonstrate for you. But I think this is a really important point to highlight here as well. Uh, as we've been kind of developing this functionality with the smart responses and really with everything, there's been this need for a lot of the functionality in terms of the levers that we can pull, the dials that we can turn on the HawkSearch end, are things that we've had access to, but we're more kind of behind the gate from our clients, and that's generally not how HawkSearch works. Hopefully, for all the HawkSearch clients listening in here, you guys are very aware of that. We like to expose out as much of the functionality as we can to put more of the tools back in your guys' hands. We want to make sure that we can automate as much as we can there, but that we always realize that there's going to be times where you guys want to get in behind the scenes and maybe change a little bit of something. This is the start of that kind of process for us with the AI functionality. So with all of those different smart responses that we were showing as part of the earlier slide deck here, one of the things that we're now able to roll out as a part of this Bourne release is our AI Workbench, and the first part of that is controlling the prompts for that smart response. Being able to build out those different prompts to obviously have multiple prompts that you can then reference with the relevant ID. So again, as we were talking about those developer documents, hey, here's the ID that you can then call in to drive those responses. Really is kind of the ground floor for where we're going throughout the rest of the year here as part of the rest of our agentic releases here, the Black Widow and of course James Bond coming at the end of the year, where we're really going to be able to expand this functionality out. And this is really kind of, again, just that ground floor, leveraging that smart response functionality, giving you a really clear way to engineer those prompts, and then we can have the runway to build out more functionality in this AI Workbench. John, I know you've got some background in terms of where we're going with this in terms of more of the agentic functionality, but I'm really excited about kind of this initial response. Anything that you'd add to kind of the AI Workbench and where we're at right now and where we're going here?
Totally. And also, hopefully it's obvious, but just to be absolutely clear, this still does work with Rapid UI. So just to kind of take that step back, Rapid UI always had the smart response. Then, of course, the developers are like, I want to use it myself.
Yeah.
That's why you showed in the docs before, Jonathan, you can pass in the ID of this prompt here. But just to be absolutely clear, Rapid UI, leverages the same thing. So you can still take advantage of Rapid UI and have your merchandisers or whoever your prompt engineers are make the changes there. But you're absolutely right, Jonathan, that this is going to be enhanced with more of that agentic approach that we were saying before. So I know it's light. We're starting with the basics. And then you'll see in the next releases, there'll be a lot more rich functionality here, number one, and a lot more deeper integration with HawkSearch. You'll see some of the navigation here is quite light. This is another big project we'll be talking about in our next release.
Yes, there's a lot of things behind the scenes that are going on. This is a little bit of a little peek into those things here. So, as kind of a part of that, so we obviously recognize, hey, we want to expose out some of the ability for, again, that kind of prompt engineering. One of the things that we're also doing that we've kind of baked into the tool now, again, we were talking about how we've had dials we can turn, levers we can pull. Want to make sure that you guys are aware of those things that we can do. And this is also kind of one of the again, talking about where we're going in the future here as a part of this release, and why this release is so important is that it's getting a lot of these things kind of we're setting the table basically for where we're going in the future with a lot of this functionality. And so as a part of this, in the back end now, we have a much more streamlined interface for our support teams to be able to influence these things. And that is the first step then of actually exposing a lot of this functionality out to you, our customers, using HawkSearch. So in the back end of the HawkSearch world here, our support team, people like me, administrators within the tool, now have access to some more nitty-gritty kind of configuration options. We'll definitely show this a part of the back-end demonstration as well, just so you guys can see some of this. But what I want to call attention to is that when we were talking earlier about some of the smart search functionality and kind of how that's been around for a little while now, over a year that we've been really building on that functionality, Of course, there's been changes where we're now kind of unifying all of those, that kind of smart search functionality. One of the cool things that we can do, again, understanding that every client is unique. Again, we talk about fasteners versus home goods versus home decor, lots of different use cases there. We also understand that when we're thinking about how are we leveraging that smart search functionality, where we can blend in keyword searches and conceptual large language model based searches, and we can look at the embedding models for image results to deliver kind of a unified set of results. One of the cool things that we can do now with this AI configuration in the back end is that we can say what is more important to our catalog. Do we want to really lean more into those image results? Are we really still more keyword search, but we want to layer in maybe some more conceptual search results here? We have the ability to change those kind of values here, make it a little bit more tailored to our customer specific needs. And then the next step from this is then going to be able to expose some of this functionality out into that AI Workbench as well. Last but not least, and I'll probably spend very little time on this particular slide because we can actually show this in action here. But as a part of this kind of ongoing process where we've really been doubling down on how HawkSearch integrates with AI functionality in terms of either leveraging RAG, leveraging generative AI, getting into the agentic space, part of that kind of ongoing conversation is how can we leverage the all of the events, all of the signals, all these different ways that we see of visitors now searching. I want to upload an image. I want to write a statement or a question that I'm looking for an answer for. I want to just do a part number search, those kinds of things. How do we report on that to make it so that when you're using HawkSearch, you have insight into, well, how is the tool performing for you? And so, you might recall over the years, we've been kind of, hammering away at this, like, how can we do this? How can we do this? Very excited as part of the Bourne release. We're kind of really layering out the framework here to build out more advanced reporting that gives you additional insight in terms of how HawkSearch is performing for you. And this is a different way of approaching reporting in that we're looking at kind of a more of a data lake approach. Basically, everything that HawkSearch can track, we've now got into a single repository where we can start to build out very unique customized reports, obviously starting with kind of an initial setting of existing reports that we want to pipe over here. The other cool thing about this advanced analytics, this is available for everyone using HawkSearch right now. All you need to do on your end is reach out to your CSD representative and ask them to turn that on for you so that you can go ahead and have access to this. So this is definitely one of the very cool things that you can kind of start playing around with, right now as a part of this call. Just reach out to your CSD rep and get that turned on for you. With all that said, let's stop talking about the slides here and start showing you what we can do here. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to our first example here into our smart response functionality here, where we can start to give some demonstrations around what does this actually look like. We've given you kind of, hopefully those slides were helped educate a little bit around what we're talking about, but let's get into the actual practical application here. So the kind of the first way that I'd leverage this is to say, we can do some examples here where we're pulling back in, leveraging that smart response again for that summary kind of approach. And a fun way to do this would be something like a fun example I always like to pull out here for this kind of a search. This is a kind of an electrical distribution catalog. Would be to pose a question like, hey, I need a portable power source for a job site. Giving it, kind of a statement. I'm giving it, I've kind of intentionally used some additional verbiage that might not necessarily be needed. I've kind of intentionally referred to a generator in a little bit of a weird way. And so then we're leveraging not only the smart search to deliver, hey, we know you're talking about generators and other power options here, but then we're leveraging that smart response with the generative AI capacity to look at that and then say, hey, let's make a recommendation. And again, this is one of those kind of initial, summary kind of responses here. And so it's saying, hey, here's a recommended product for you. Here is the product itself. And here is why this is important. This is why this is good for a job site. It has ease of use features like a fuel gauge. It has this kind of robust power outage or power output, I should say, making it suitable for a range of jobs on site. So again, the idea here, not only do we want to answer the question or provide a recommendation for what the customer has said they're looking for, leverage the smart research to deliver relevant results for that, but then leverage the smart response to say, hey, here's what you might want to be looking at as a part of that. The great thing about this kind of functionality is that it can apply to both, obviously, if we're thinking another fun would say, hey, we're looking for, if I change this now over to a blog post, it can look at the documentation, how to select the correct generator, inverter versus generator, which is the better source. And again, that smart response is now changing based off of the data that we're looking at. So again, talking about that kind of adaptability, if we're thinking catalog versus blog post versus whatever, that summary approach for smart response can still be very beneficial here, where because we're not asking for a specific kind of answer, it's able to provide recommendations on the different kinds of content. Hey, how to select the correct type of generator as the document that it's suggesting here. So really great functionality. And again, this is all driven by the different prompts that we can now change in the back end. But before we show you that, let's show you one other example of that smart answer functionality. So this is more examples of what we would refer to the flavor of smart response as a smart summary. It's really more summarizing the content that it sees in the documentation, summarizing the attribution that it knows about the product catalog to deliver a recommendation there. One of the other approaches that we can take is, again, looking more at documentation, specifically in this case, PDFs. So if I open this up, this Moab 3 PDF here, you can see that it's just a PDF that we have fed into the system here, some basic specifications for the product. Hey, what is it made for? What is the trail type? What's the weight of it? What's the material that it's made out of? What are the features that it has access to? And then leveraging the smart response, in this case, prompted in the back end to say we were looking to answer questions about this. So saying, what kinds of trails is the Moab 3 good for and why? Again, asking a little bit more of a specific question. What is it good for? What trail should it be recommended on? And then help answer why that is the case there. Now, the fun thing here, we obviously make the suggestion directly to the documentation. So if someone is just looking for the document that answers this question, not a problem. We're surfacing that for them right there. Makes it very easy for them to get directly to the documentation if they'd like to. But more importantly, from kind of a feature perspective here, the smart response now is leveraging this to answer the specific question here. So what trails is the Moab 3 good for? Well, the Moab 3 is designed specifically for rugged hiking trails. And again, it pulled this information out of just the table that we're seeing here in this PDF. What is the trail type? Rugged, right there in that data. But I wanted to make it a little bit more complex. I wanted to kind of help showcase, I should say, why this is an important functionality, because not only can it directly answer that question here, oh, hey, it's good for rugged hiking trails, but it will then use that and why to provide supporting documentation for that. The shoe includes an exclusive Moab 3 footbed that contours to your feet. Again, understanding the why this is important for those long hikes. It has best-in-class outsole performance. Again, helping to answer the additional question of and why here. So this is a very important feature. We've seen this being used, in some of the testing that we've done for very specific product attribution that I might be looking for. Hey, what is this? What do I need to replace this? What is the sizing of this particular product? What would work in this space? Those kinds of use cases. This can be really powerful. Again, I would urge anyone that is looking at this and thinking, oh, hey, we have a lot of documentation that we'd like to leverage, or we see lots of ways that this could be used as a differentiator. Because again, think about your competitors in this space. They're not leveraging this functionality. We're offering that as a part of the HawkSearch tool set here. This is a way to very easily differentiate yourself from your competitors and become a resource for your customers on your site. Not only am I able to search for the product that I'm looking for and find the answers to that product, but I can ask questions about those products now. I can get the documentation. I can leverage all of those product spec sheets and user guides and all of that kind of documentation. We can now surface that and use that not only from a perspective of helping inform the answers that we're driving here, but then your visitors know, hey, this is a resource. I can go to your site. I can do a search and find not only what I'm looking for, but understand why that's a good fit for the use cases I'm trying to answer for. Excellent. Let's go ahead and dive into the next piece of the puzzle here for us, which is the actual AI Workbench. So we're just showing you those smart responses and kind of how we can now drive these different experiences of, hey, do some kind of guided selling as a part of this, make a product recommendation, suggest suggest an article they might want to look at as a part of that, or look at those documentations, look at those articles, look at those blog posts, and answer the direct question here. You can drive those different responses and the prompts that we're using in the back end now here as a part of our AI Workbench within HawkSearch here. You'll notice as an example, we just kind of have some basic examples here built out where we've got a basic visitor prompt, an enterprise customer prompt, a new customer prompt. And of course, if we go into any one of these, so let's just say that we want to edit this particular prompt, we want to make some changes here, we can go into those. We can see the whole prompt that we have defined for this particular example here. And so again, we can see, hey, note that this customer is an enterprise customer. So if there's any pricing included in the response, include a message to talk with their customer success director, their representatives, so that we can know, hey, we know this is an enterprise customer. The pricing might be a little bit different for them. We might want to guide them towards not only here is the right response, the right product that we might want to suggest, but let them know they might want to reach out to their customer representative to get the best pricing available here. again, this just speaks to our ability to now drive these kinds of great generative AI responses, but let you tailor them around what your specific use cases are. Or before, this would be something that you'd need to reach out to HawkSearch and our development team to change these prompts, or something like that. Now we have this nice user interface where we can go ahead and build out additional prompts. We've got the IDs very easily referenced for your developers. We've got the prompts themselves that we can edit, as well as obviously summary descriptions, so that if John sets up a rule and I'm out on vacation, I come back next week, I can understand kind of what's happening within the tool here in terms of why these are prompts that we're leveraging and what the goal of them is. John, I'll maybe pause for a second here, because I know this is a really kind of, again, we were talking before about how this is kind of the ground floor of where we're going with this AI workbench here. I think this is a really great kind of framework for us to build out of here. But I'd like to maybe pass to you for a little bit to talk just for a second or two about kind of where we're going with this and where you see this kind of functionality being leveraged as we're building it out.
Yeah, well, some of it does come down to, as we were saying before, Jonathan, the idea of the persona. So you're kind of highlighting these personas here. Of course, they could be a lot more advanced than what we're showing here. The other thing that's interesting is a conversation we had yesterday with a customer using this, which is, we really want to be able to support Spanish, but the content's still not in Spanish. It's like, no problem. Change the prompt, say, please respond in Spanish. So we were kind of commenting before, Jonathan, like, you still need the results on the bottom. Like, what if I just have the smart response? Obviously, we don't care. We're flexible there, but you could say, yeah, I want you to respond in Spanish. If someone's logged in, that speaks Spanish, that kind of thing. So there's just so much you can leverage when we think of like tuning or tweaking the HawkSearch environment. Now you have like a whole new world of Gen AI to help support with that. And then the final thing would be, hey, we use Opti for A/B testing or whatever your tool may be. It's like, okay, let's test 2 prompts and see which one works better. And then just that little bit of logic and say, some cases I want to pass in this ID, and some cases I want you meaning the prompt, and in other cases I want to put this one in, and then check out to see which one gives me a better result. So there's a lot of flexibility for this moving forward without involving the developer.
Definitely. And that's, again, I'd stress anyone watching this that's curious about this, go ahead and scan that QR code in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, or right-hand corner of the screen, and get that one-on-one demonstration for you guys. More than happy to walk through these different examples. That's been one of the fun things over the years as we've been kind of rolling out this functionality and really iterating on it and building on it and making something very special. That really a lot of this is, hey, we talk to our clients, our customers, and they're like, hey, could you do this? Could you do that? What about if we have this use case, or we've got this data that we'd like to pull in? We have a knowledge base that we want to leverage for this, or we want to start pulling in customer order history. And again, these are all things that we can drive and we can support. It's more about kind of having those conversations with you guys to make sure, understand kind of the use cases you're looking to solve and leverage AI to help answer. So again, just really encourage you to go ahead and scan that QR code to get that demonstration scheduled for you guys there. But building on from this then, okay, so we've got all this great smart response functionality where we can drive these kind of great, either answering questions, making product recommendations, things like that. We've got now the AI workbench here where we can start to really tailor those prompts, lean into, like you talked about, some of the A/B testing. Hey, I want to do this response for one customer, another response for a different customer. This is all really exciting. But again, kind of the next part of that is, well, we want to make sure that we're really driving kind of the best set of results. And part of that is really exposing out some of the controls that we have in the backend. Now, some of this is going to be a little in the weeds. Like, you don't need to know about the cached SQS API for embedding API model there. That is something that, again, these are features that from the HawkSearch end, we want to know about. But as a customer using the tool here, you don't need to really worry about. What I want to highlight as a part of the screen is just how easy we have right now for our team to support you guys, our customers, using HawkSearch to tailor kind of your specific use cases. So these are all things that you might not necessarily be concerned about, but we can then really leverage to drive better experiences. So you're going to be concerned about them, because we can then look at things like, hey, how important is just the keyword search responses that we're seeing back versus the conceptual search responses versus what we're looking at from the image data? How important do we want to make each one of these? Maybe we've got really poor data. Our catalog is just kind of, all the attribution is contained in like a long description field, but we've got fantastic product images. Well, before in the past, it was like, okay, yeah, we can look at the image, we can look at the keyword, and we can look at the conceptual, but now we can say, yeah, no, you got great images. We can really lean into what are we getting back in from the image analysis of our AI tools. And we can say, hey, you know what? We want to give that an even bigger boost there. We're going to make that 50% basically more important than what we're looking at from conceptual keyword, or keyword, I should say. just really easy dials and levers that we can turn on our end to deliver even better relevancy. And again, this goes back to that idea of the tailored AI. We don't want this to be kind of a one size fits all, because again, someone in the fastener space going to have a very different experience than someone in the home goods space. Just thinking about that idea of the washer keyword search there. This is how we're able to really zero in on those use cases. And the neat thing here too is that we recognize these are important values that that you guys might want to configure yourselves. So this is kind of that first pass where now we've made this a much more unified experience for our support team to be able to make these changes. Going forward, though, we're definitely be breaking out some of these values here, specifically around kind of these boost values, to make this more functional. Is a fully kind of built out UI where your marketers, merchandisers, they can come in and say, yeah, I want to tweak the value that we're looking at. How important are our image based results versus our keyword results? Just know for any existing client of HawkSearch right now that these are levers that we can easily turn on our end. Simple request to us to go ahead and kind of troubleshoot those with you. And just some other exciting things that we can do. We were talking earlier about our idea of, again, that idea of that washer. This is, again, one of those ways that we can change this, because we can change the embedding model that we're looking at to provide one that has a better understanding of what washer means in your environment versus what is in another environment. Again, really leaning into this idea of that tailored AI approach, that you get kind of the best AI search experience that you can using HawkSearch here. Let's tackle a couple other quick things here. Again, I want to make sure that we're touching on the advanced analytics here. Again, we've been kind of working on trying to crack this nut for a while now, and I think we've really kind of hit a home run here with this latest pass here. The advanced analytics really giving us some more detailed insight. Again, we're kind of taking that trend analysis you might have seen in some of the other examples that we've been building out over the years. We're leveraging that moving forward, but we're able to build out much more detailed reporting, again, because we've transitioned over to this data lake approach. So in the past, HawkSearch understood, well, what was converting, but there was not a good way for us to highlight, hey, it's, this search term led to this purchase from this many searches, this many add to cart signals, this many. So again, all of this information was things that we understood before, but that we, are now able to surface using this different approach here. Makes it a very powerful kind of tool for us to provide those additional insights in terms of, well, how are your visitors searching and how are they getting to the products that they're looking for, while still maintaining other search reports like, what are your queries with poor results? What are, other product conversion analytics? Sorry, my environment freaked out a little bit here. Your daily searches that we might want to pull back in. So we're bringing over some of the existing reporting that you guys are used to using within the base HawkSearch tool, but now we're helping to expose out additional information that we're capturing. Additional reports will be added to this tool as well. Again, keep in mind, this is information that you guys can get access to today. Just reach out to your CSD rep, ask for access to the advanced analytics. We'll get that turned on for you guys. You can kind of see this reporting and analytics here. And then going forward with this kind of data lake approach, something I will stress as well, something that has been historically kind of a difficulty within the existing HawkSearch reporting, is that custom reports. I want to be able to track, what happens when someone does this and then makes that selection, then goes here, and they're from, New York versus California. We had all the pieces for that, but there wasn't a good framework for us to say, yeah, we can build out that kind of custom report for you. Using this advanced analytics framework, not only are we able to deliver more detailed, deeper, insightful analytics and reporting, but we can also more easily build out custom reports. So as you're getting access to this new advanced analytics portion of HawkSearch, reaching out to your CSD rep, getting that turned on, playing around with it, keep in the back of your mind as you're playing with it, hey, it would be cool if we could track X, Y, and Z. Again, reach out to your CSD rep. We want to make sure that we're building out those custom reports for you guys, getting the information that you want to see out of HawkSearch into a meaningful report so you guys can take action on it. But again, just loving how much more information we're returning here in terms of, hey, keyword searches, the products they're tied to, and all the interactions and signals that we can see along that line. And again, with that kind of trend analysis to understand, hey, okay, these are the searches that we're seeing. Here's the sales count versus the search count. What is the ebb and flow that we're seeing of that? Changing the time frame. This also, just from like a basic level, has a lot more configuration options than what is in the existing reporting. We can, change the time frame to be not from days but into quarters, to change the time frame from being specific time frames. And again, also supports for our B2B clients that are leveraging a lot of this, the various engines that you might have associated with it. So if you've got multiple engines, we can start to also let you segment the reporting out in that regard. Very exciting stuff. Again, really going to be looking forward to, as we're moving forward with this kind of new reporting system here, the insights that we can build out for our customers. John, anything you'd add? Because I know this has been one of your big babies as well in terms of, or not your big baby, it has been a baby of yours in terms of building out this functionality and really getting it honed into the kind of use cases that we're seeing here.
Yeah, the one thing, Jonathan, to highlight too is that built into this, we're using QuickSight from AWS.
Mm-hmm.
You can also forecast where this trend is going. So that's built in. It's in the drop down on the
Yeah.
right-hand side, Jonathan. But anyway, this is sample data, so the
Yeah.
trend is going to be
Yeah,
like,
that's
oh,
right. Yeah,
you
it'll
guys
be a
are all
little
over
weird.
the place. But you'll see it looks at whatever that time period was that you're
Hmm.
already looking at, and then it will project into the future as much as you select. So you're right. There's just so many more options. Whereas before, you kind of hinted at this earlier when we were making our first approach to presenting Hawk Search data more in a trend perspective, as opposed to just kind of a table.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, Single number for a period of time,
Yeah.
is that now that we understand that trend and we're using a third party tool, you can forecast where do you think these results are going.
And I mean, there's so many more, configuration options within here. I'd really encourage anyone playing around with these to say, hey, what are, what's the conversion tracking that we're looking at, and then I want to maybe sort this based against different filters, different I want to highlight different categories of information. There's a lot of configuration options that you can play around with in here, um, on top of just kind of the more detailed reporting that we're delivering as a part of this experience.
And then the final thing, Jonathan, is we do now also support Google Analytics.
Yeah.
So if you put our email address in your Google Analytics account as read only, we also pull that. So as we're pulling the data, of course, from the tracking from
Hmm.
HawkSearch and putting into the lake, we can also put Google Analytics into it. You mentioned already, Jonathan, that you can create a custom report.
Yeah.
That custom report could include, well, I want to track the traffic from Google with my number of searches or whatever else it is, because in
Yeah.
the end, it's essentially just going to be data, structured data that we can include in another combined report, for example.
Yeah, very, very, very exciting stuff. I'm super excited about kind of the advanced analytics engine here and where we're going to go with this functionality here. Excellent. I think that covers the high level information that we wanted to cover here as a part of the uh, roadmap. Let's go ahead and move into more of the again the slide presentation here. Kind of talk about where we're going in the future. So this is the Bourne release. We've been talking about kind of again the smart response, the advanced analytics, that how we can now change the prompting in the back end of the tool here. We have a nice work interface for that. But John, why don't you speak a little bit about where we're going in terms of, obviously Black Widow. I can't leave out James Bond if you start talking about agentic or agents. So let's go ahead and run
Yes,
through kind of where we're going here. We've talked a lot
yes,
about what we're doing now. What's going
these
forward?
are all going to be teams of lawyers who are going to sue us for using these likenesses. But anyway, and I should have highlighted this before. Obviously, you just covered it in the demo, but even in the beginning, the importance of analytics. You might say, "Well, it wasn't so bad, but why are you spending all this time?" Is, well, guess what? The more data that we can feed to these AI tools, the more
Hmm.
value you get out of it. Obviously.
Yeah.
So yes, we kind of had a restart there and get that together. But now we can start focusing on productivity and automation. So the productivity part, just Black Widow that you see there, is, and maybe some of you have been kind of tracking and following along. We did a nice press release recently on our MCP server and the way that works. So for
Hmm.
people who are kind of familiar with that, we've taken our dashboard APIs and wrapped an LLM around them, similar to tools you're familiar with. Uh, like Copilot and things like that.
Yeah.
So incorporating those to make you more productive. But then after you could kind of converse, so to speak, with HawkSearch and say, hey, show me all my synonyms. Hey, I want to change those synonyms, those types of things. Then to say, well, you know what? I often do like these four things when I
Hmm.
check like searches with poor results, and I have to like find the synonyms for them. We've been talking about it for a while, but the question was always like, okay, I get the value of it. How are you going to do it, and when are you going to implement it? And now we really have that. Now that we really have the MCP aspect in place and using these other tools to automate those processes, now I can just say like these are the 4 or 5 processes that take me a lot of time. Can't we just automate that? So
Yeah.
some of these will be out of the box, and some of them will, could just be custom built for you. And then maybe the final thing I'll just highlight is, what if I want to do like a pilot, or where maybe someone's on the call that just wants to like play with it, new prospect, etc. We've been working a lot on a feature called QuickStart, which is, hey, you want to see it in action? Here's our data, and you can put it in there, and you can kind of check it. What if it's your data.
Mm-hmm.
And just to simplify that, obviously all of our customers have their own data, but to simplify that process. So we're really focusing a lot of time to like get up and running quickly, whether you're an existing customer and you kind of want to throw this thing together and kind of see how it works with the smart response or what have you,
Yeah.
or a new customer. We're spending a lot of time on that, what we're calling now QuickStart 2.0.
Yeah, some. I've seen some previews, guys. For the people watching, I've seen some previews of what these next releases are going to contain, and it is very, very exciting. Not to downplay the Bourne release, which has a lot of great functionality, and really loving kind of how we're iterating on smart response. But the skies are very blue in the future here for where we're going with this functionality, and so very exciting. Speaking of blue skies, why don't you join us for some blue skies out in Charleston, South Carolina, October 8th through 10th. We're having our customer summit this year in Charleston, South Carolina. Registration is open for that. Going to be a blast. If you were unfortunate enough to not attend the last customer summit in Chicago last year, it was a great event. We had lots of great presentations. We spoke a lot about roadmap and kind of where we're going, and provide demonstrations of existing functionality. We had customers do presentations. Going to be the same kind of deal out here in Charleston, South Carolina. Beautiful city. We've got a wonderful space reserved for this. It'll be a lot of fun. Great chance to talk to other HawkSearch customers. Great chance to, meet in person with some of the representatives that you've been dealing with. Really do highly encourage you guys to go ahead and register for that event. It's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to it. And so, yeah, definitely go ahead and click through that link to sign up for that. Again, there's a link also in the hawksearch.com website. Again, would be remiss not to highlight that QR code to scan to book a demo, because that is, of course, the best way to get directly in front of me and the sales team and your CSD rep to make sure that we're providing kind of that one-on-one demonstration of how all the functionality we ran through today can work directly for you. But again, make sure you're signing up for that customer summit. Make sure you're booking that demo to get a one-on-one demonstration, and make sure you attend any of our future webinars that our wonderful marketing team puts together and gets us all excited for. So, John, thank you so much for joining me. I always love doing these presentations with you. You always have so much great information to provide. Makes my presentation so much easier to work along with here, so I appreciate that. Thanks to everyone for joining us today, and we will be back again with the next release shortly here. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye.